Let me tell you something. You're doing a great job. Doing a great job. But it's good when doing a great job. Everything's fine and we are shipping on time. Everything's fine and we are shipping on time. Everything's fine and we are shipping on time. Everything's fine and we are shipping on time.
Welcome to Everything's Fine. We're shipping on time. Hear the stories behind your favorite games from the creators who built them with your hosts McNeil and Gary Geddes. Now let's start the show.
Rick was asking, like, why don't we chat about how we all got to know each other at EA and
Okay.
you
And then
know,
to another
where our
later on,
lives
do we want
intersected
to
from then.
do we want to fill in between like how I got to Activision, Dave Crane, Steve Cartwright, and everything that happened? You know, how I got to EA originally before I met you guys.
Speedrun version.
So Atari, we worked there for about a year, and their whole the whole plan with Atari was we're going to make a keyboard for the 2600 to turn it into a home computer for everybody, right? And I think they even had a big ass ad for advertisement for a magazine that I do double, 2-page that said something like 90 million people already own half a computer. Atari's going to sell them the other half or whatever, like for whatever, under $100 or something like that. And because we had all that ready to go, but then the Commodore came out with the VIC-20, which was the predecessor to the Commodore 64. Atari decided that they were not going to be able to be price competitive with the VIC-20. And so they kind of canceled the whole project. And by that time, a little trivia thing too. When I got to Atari, the game that I ended up working on at Atari for this new accelerated 2600 was the actual licensed version of Robotron.
Yes.
Talk about full circle. They had a license with Williams. So Mike and I both worked on an actual version of Robotron, which was really
implemented the same way though with the
cool
button.
to me.
Yeah, I remember
I think
that.
we did do the same thing. I think we used my original idea on the Atari joystick to do that, right? But we had the actual graphics and actual license
And the real
look and
sounds
feel and everything. And so that was and you're talking about 8-inch floppy disks. At Atari, we were using Radio Shack Trash 80s as the host machine, downloading to a custom Target hardware machine for the 2600, which was completely custom, of course, because it was new hardware. But we were using 8-inch floppies
because that's what
on
they
the
had.
Radio Shack TR. That was our host system at Atari. Anyway, Atari decided they can't compete. They're going to cancel the project, and they offered for Mike and I, you guys can continue to work on apps for the Atari 800 as part of this division. And I was like, fuck that noise. It's like, I want to make games. I don't want to make apps in BASIC or whatever. And so we actually even wrote a version of BASIC for this machine, this home computer. I was working on that. Anyway, so I left. I immediately started. What I did is Vince and I hired a hardware guy, and I immediately started to create my own accelerator for the 2600 using the same technology, which was something called bus stuffing, which is how they would speed things up so you can like write to memory twice as fast as you could before. That was one of the acceleration things on there. Activision later on would do the exact same thing in their cartridges, and they would get sued by Atari for it. Another story. But everybody was trying to figure out a way to accelerate this primitive system. So I start working on a project like that, and then Activision peeks their head up, and they already have a New Jersey office. They're headquartered in Mountain View, and Vince knows about this because he's a headhunter. So Vince tells him about me. I go meet one of their guys, who now we know is Jim Charney, who went on to great success and also was president of one of the big video game organizations. What's it called? I don't remember. Anyway, Jim met me at Wolf's Deli, 57th Street, Manhattan. Wasn't very long meeting. It's good food. And he's like, you need to come to New Jersey and talk to the rest of them. Come to New Jersey. He says, don't worry, we'll take care of transportation. So I think I asked Vince if I can get a helicopter, the way we've been living and everything. Vince says, let's go with a limo. And so they get me a stretch limo to drive me from Manhattan to Jersey for this interview. They're like, okay, yeah, you're exactly what we want. You got to go to California now and talk to him there. So they start flying me to California. a few times. That's where I first meet Cartwright and Russell Lieblich. Tom Lopez was the guy running the shop, the game studio then, development studio. And so he's the one I talked to and the one that hired me first. Jim Levy was the chairman and the president. And then Dave Crane was one of the founders, and Bob Whitehead and Al Miller. They were still there. They hadn't left to form Accolade yet. Cartwright wasn't one of the founders, but he was an early guy, and he had worked at Atari. And that's where I think he met Dave. And so that's where I first met those guys. I remember the very first time, and Peter Kaminsky and Russell Lieblich. And
Dave Crane, just for the youngs, shipped a little game called Pitfall. Was that before you joined there? That was already out? Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
but this was like the end of the 2600 era at this point. Activision was setting up a group to port their games to the new home computers of the time. And other systems like Commodore 64, Apple, ColecoVision, I think Coleco Atom. I think they had one called the Atom. And basically they set up a little group in Building 3, right across from Building 1. Now that's all Google over there. This is on the east side of 101 near Ranksdorf in Mountain View, right? Between Ranksdorf and San Antonio. And so we were there to port games. But that when I first got out there, I remember for some reason, I do remember this. They took me to lunch. I think Peter and Russell took me to lunch. We went to Frankie, Johnny, and Luigi's.
Mountain View.
In Mountain
I
View.
do.
Remember that place, Rick? Yeah. Old school place. Really, really great, like Italian joint. And I don't know if it's still there anymore. But anyway, but that's when I met all those guys. They flew me maybe once or twice more and to look for an apartment and stuff. They hired me. They hired movers to move me lock, stock, and barrel from Manhattan to Mountain View. So I'm working on porting some games. The first one was Zenji, which was Matt Hubbard's game on the 2600. I made that for the C64. And then I remember Bob Whitehead. Was it Bob or Al? No, I think it was Al. And I started eating lunch with Dave and Steve a lot. But I remember Bob or Al coming up and just saying to me one day, "Hey, we're hearing really good things about what you're doing over there. You're really sharp."
I'm hearing
Good things, Rick.
I'm hearing, he said, "I'm hearing good things." And it's like, that was really, really nice because I was a little bit in awe of those guys because I knew they were all millionaires and all had basically made all these famous games and kind of pioneered the whole industry for the home game consoles. And so, but here I am, now part of that company. But then, I started getting close with Dave and Steve, and he had just started working on Ghostbusters because Activision got the license for it. And he asked me if maybe because they were hearing good things, if I would take it over and I would help finish the game while he goes on his honeymoon for a month in Hawaii. So I'm like, okay. I had already been working on the game with him, and I had been integrating the text-to-speech voice playback, which was the very first game to have voice on a home computer. And I got that working. My voice ended up being used in the game because it digitized better than our professional voice actors, just because my voice was a little lower and more nasally, and it just happened to work better at that sample rate. So not only did I integrate the code to do it, which we licensed from a guy in Berkeley, a doctor, or a PhD, I mean, but my voice ended up actually being in the game as well. He slimed me, and Ghostbusters when you press the space bar and the song.
What year was
It's
that?
all me, only voice in the game. And so the game is working, but there's some bugs and changes we want to make, and the boss level's not done. And so I basically took that over, that whole code base, and I became the guy to finish it. And I remember working with Gary Kitchen, helped me tune the boss battle with the marshmallow guy at the end. So that was really helpful to have him because he was really good. He was like, Dave in the sense that he knew the touchy-feely stuff. He knew what mattered as far as design. I was more of an engineer learning to be a game designer, but definitely more of a tech guy. And so I did that. I guess I did a good enough job that I got the opportunity to make my first original game. And that became Murder on the Mississippi. First we called it Riverboat. I think I might have told you guys that I wanted to do Raise the Titanic because I was a Clive Cussler fan and the movie had been out and it seemed to lend itself well to a game. They didn't want to bother trying to get the rights. We ended up making it called Riverboat, and then it ended up being called Murder on the Mississippi. There you go. Created by Adam Bellin. Activision always put the names of the designers on the product. It was, is there a screenshot? Yes, it was. You could see there. Sometimes we have full
Metroidvania.
screen graphics, and then the rest of the game, there'd be text on the bottom and graphics on the top. and moving left to right. Yeah, side scroller. You
Was
can
this
move.
was this before or after EA's Murder on the Zindernuff?
That's a good question. This would have been like
Before.
86,
After?
Yeah, after.
maybe
Let me
after.
see.
But this
I'll
was
look it
the
up.
first graphical and text adventure in one. And so this also, let's see. Do I have that in here? No, that's in another box. This game won an award at CES that year for the CES
Nice.
Innovations Award. I have a nice
Congrats.
plaque, which I can show you
Yeah,
later.
Murder on the Zindernuff was 1983.
Okay, right. And what platform was that on?
Would have been
Man, good
Apple and
question.
Commodore.
Yeah, it would have to be.
For Apple II, Commodore 64, and Atari 8-bit, and IBM.
Yeah, so I was proud to win that award at CES that year. This is before E3, so video games were still at CES. Part of this project, besides making the game and having a real artist and a writer and producer, we had teams by then. We had the first artist in the industry, which was Hillary Mills. Activision hired her and basically created the first dedicated full-time artist for video games. As part of that project, I also had to speed up the loading of the 1541 disk drive. And I figured out a way to do that. And so I wrote my own sort of driver to override what was in the 1541, and it would actually download itself in there and basically treat the disk a little differently and load stuff way, way faster than the C64 OS could run. And I only point that out because I ended up repurposing that for EA as well in 1987 after we did the Ferrari Grand Prix, and I came in to sort of help get that done. Me, Bob Rakowski, Rick Koenig was already working on it. That's when I first met Rich Hilleman and Greg Riker. And then right after that, they needed
Fast loader.
some kind of fast loading system for their games on the C64. And so I created a fast loading system for EA, and they used that in several games until C64 was not needed anymore. That was 92. I think I actually started in January or February 93.
Yeah. That's when I met you.
But yeah, we were.
Because I was there. I was your IT guy. I was your tech services guy to install your computer.
Yeah, I was going to say, you were still IT.
I was
right?
under your desk installing your computer. I put you on the 3Com email. It was a flat file email system. We would just send text files over.
Okay, right.
And I thought it was really cool when I got to EA because we had a 33 megabyte hard drive. It was amazing. 33 megabytes.
Right, megabytes. Well, and back then I was all Windows. I wasn't Mac yet. Maybe I was playing with Macs as a secondary machine, but yeah, I was full on Windows still, PC. And to the point of, I having never have done 3D before, got to know the PC really, really well and wrote a 3D engine that powered the PGA Tour titles for a few years. And that was amazing. And I knew enough then, even to know as I started to become a leader or a manager, to know that if I didn't know how to do something or I needed help, to find it. And I hired a guy who knew how to do texture mapping. And I had him write some stuff that I could integrate into the 3D engine to do cooler texture mapping. And that's how we ended up looking better than Lynx 386. It was all of this combined. But the thing there was that not a lot of people know. Sam knows this, and Cartwright knows this, but because I didn't know much about 3D, again, I'm resourceful. I like to learn. I went to Barnes & Noble. I think it was the one in San Mateo, and I bought a book. I bought a
paper book.
I bought a book about 3D engines and 3D, had a 3D programming, and it came with a 5.25" floppy disk in the book.
Sample code.
And it has some sample code. I started with that and slowly refined it and chiseled it and sculpted it and turned it into something else, and then optimized it at assembly level, which is something I did know very well, right? Except now we're on x86 instead of 6502, and turned that into the 3D engine that it became. But
That's
I literally
incredible.
started with just the book from Barnes & Noble.
Yeah.
Because there was
There
nobody
was no
at EA
AI
help.
to
It's
ask
like I didn't know,
inside of Unreal. There was no Gemini,
was-
Google.
There was no internet. We were years away from. Well, no, actually, we were only a couple of years away from like Netscape. It was coming right around the corner.
Yeah.
But there was no internet. Exactly. There was the World Wide Web. We called it.
No, there was Gopher and FTP
there was
when you got there. That was it.
Yeah.
And then
FTP
everybody had a
for
Wildcat BBS. And that's how we did things. The Wildcat BBS. Dial in
That's
with my
right.
2400 baud modems. Those are the good old
That's
days.
exactly right. But yeah, Richard and I were really hanging a lot back then. And
So,
then
yeah, so get back to Hitman.
yeah,
You
oh, so then,
join
right.
Hitman. You'd start your 3D Tiger.
So Hitman
The
and
beginning of Tiger Woods was basically 486 PGA, right? You built that for the first 3D
yep,
ever.
PGA, the very first one we called it
And we were
PGA
competing with
486.
Microsoft that had links, and we're competing with,
Was it Microsoft or who had
I
links
think it
back
was
then?
Microsoft, but
I
it
don't know
was
if it was
made in
Microsoft.
Utah.
Yeah.
And then there was another one from Sierra.
Okay.
Yeah.
Links 386. Well, maybe that's why we called
PGA
it PGA
486.
486
Yeah.
because it was Links 386.
And Hillman
then
got the
after that,
PGA license. That was the big thing, because we could be EA Sports.
well, but PGA was kind of resting on its laurels on the
Right.
merit of the license, but technically and
Right.
visually it was not competing anymore, and that was the whole deal. And I think that maybe Richard's argument or part of it when he got to take that over and start a new group. And Cartwright and Sam both played golf. I didn't, but I didn't have to. And then he put together this little, well, dream team. I'll go ahead and call it, but I don't know. But maybe that's what he was thinking. But me, Sam, Cartwright, me. So we do PGA 46. Then we retitle everything to be like the year name. So PGA 95, 96, 97, that kind of thing. We did the course add-on discs as well. We would
Right.
walk the courses. The technology would change year to year before we finally got to like the laser scanning and shit like that. But first, at a certain point, I think it was even like we were using, or the company we hired, were using like literally like transits and just actual topographical data and using whatever we could because every course was different. I would even walk some courses myself just to know what it looked like. When the Pro-Am came in or PGA Tour tournaments would come around, because we had the license, I had access to like passes and like the money clip. And so I could actually walk anywhere I wanted. I could go down to AT&T at Pebble Beach, park right on the fucking course if I wanted to, and walk anywhere because of these passes. Now, Sam and Steve, enjoyed those more than me because they wanted to watch the game. I just wanted to check out Pebble Beach and, just
Yeah.
have some fun. And
Dude,
so,
the
I remember
credits,
going to
by the
Monterey.
way, the credits on PGA Tour 96 are like a who's who. Like it's Steve Cartwright, Sam Nelson, Adam Bellin, Tony Iuppa, Lance Alameda
Lance
doing
Alameda.
art.
Who? Lance
Yeah.
Alameda. Yes, Lance was there.
Eric DeSantis, Arthur Koch is on there.
Arthur Koch, yes.
Mark Day did some of the video
The
production.
Media Lab. Yeah.
And Glenn Chin was your product manager.
Glenn
like
was
it's,
our
there's some legends
our
on
marketing
that
product
team.
manager. I forgot about Lance and
Tony
Tony,
Iuppa,
of
the best
course.
baseball name
Yeah.
ever.
Yeah.
So that was the Hitman.
Now batting. Tony
Iuppa.
Iuppa.
And so PGA
98.
95, 97, 98. So then eventually, so 3DO came along, right? So Tripp starts 3DO. He leaves, he gives up being CEO to Larry, but he's still chairman. But then he starts 3DO. We were Cartwright. This is some of Cartwright's brilliance about the whole keep it simple kind of thing, right? And simple is hard, but keep it simple. We were doing, when we were making our engine and figuring out like trajectory of the ball and the physics, we were working hard on making it accurate. And Steve is the one that said, it's not going in a missile.
This
Right?
code is
It
not
doesn't-
going in a missile.
You guys are overthinking it. It doesn't have to be as accurate as you think, because we were trying to outdo Blink 386, right? So we want it to be the most accurate simulation ever in a PC golf game. And he's like, it just needs to look and feel right. It doesn't need to actually be right. So we sort of pivoted early enough without wasting too much time. And Ian Clark was one of the engineers as well. Gil Colgate. Ian used Excel and Excel macros to simulate the trajectory of the ball, just in Excel. And that ended up informing the algorithm that we actually used instead of like trying to do actual
On a
physics
ball
simulation.
through the air.
That,
with,
really need gravity
Atmosphere.
and friction and the ball spinning and all of that shit. And so, and obviously it worked really, really well. And then the other thing that was really novel in that game was the way we redid the power meter. That was mostly Cartwright, but we worked together on tuning that. So the power meter felt really fucking good, even though it was just timing, right? It really felt good. And the way the hysteresis and the way it accelerated up and came back and the colors,
Right.
it was wonderful. And it became the de facto standard forever for all golf games. So anyway, video though, we're trying to make the most accurate simulation ever in a golf game. and they were spending a lot of time on it. It took a really, really long time, and they had something that was good, but they also took a really, really long time just to get the first hole digitized and working and modeled.
Classic.
Just a funny thing. I did not expect this to happen, but we would talk and together because we were share course data and things like that. So I would attend their meetings. Sometimes they would attend ours. I remember one meeting in 1450 in a conference room really close to Hitman on the second floor there, and the whole team from 3DO and Lucy running that and me. And I think I was the only one in there from the Hitmen, probably, to represent, our PC engineering effort for the same. And they were talking about how they finally got, this working and that working. And I don't know what month it is. It's something like June or July, but they finally got the one hole working. And they were talking about trying to ship or have the rest of them all done by like August, right? And that was the moment where, well, I mean, Lucy and I were always good, but that was the one day where Lucy, gave me a glare, and it might have affected our working relationship a tiny bit. But I was a little bit like sort of Tom Hanks. It's like when I heard this, I just raised my hand. I'm in the back, and raised my hand, and I'm like, I remember Tom Hanks in Big when he's like, I don't get it. Turning into a building. What is that? That doesn't make any sense. A truck that turns into a building. And so, I'm just saying, so if it took all this time to get this one hole done, how in the world are you going to get 17 more holes done in the next 6-8 weeks? And she's like, it's like, didn't need to be said. I think we just wanted to get through that meeting today. And it's something that now looking back as being a manager, she probably already knew that, but it wasn't something that needed to be brought up in that meeting. But, I didn't know any better. PGA series, we started naming it 95, 96, 97. The game is performing well. We're doing the course add-ons. We have this great relationship with PGA and PGA 98. Did we have a 98? I think. Oh, but during this time, and Richard could probably give you more details of the timing of this, but during this time, for more than a year, maybe 2 years or more, EA was trying to get the license with Tiger Woods, and it was difficult. I think it was with Nike, maybe, and it was not, it was a really, really long negotiation. And so we're working on PGA, and eventually while we're working on PGA, maybe it was 98, we just decided to skip 98 and make it 99. Was there a PGA 98? I'll have to look that up. But we were making something that I think we were going to call PGA 99. And while we are working on it, I mean, after we had already started it, right? EA gets the license for Tiger. And I remember Rich saying, so we finally got the license. The next PGA title was supposed to ship, I don't know, more than a year or something like that. It was the typical, cycle for the next 0.1 or 1.1 version, right? Next year's version and normal dev cycle. And he's like, we got it, but we need to change PGA to Tiger and make it Tiger. And we need to do it in 9 months, right? And at that point, we already had a schedule that was not 9 months. It was longer than that. Because remember, we have courses to do. We have motion capture.
Yeah, you got mocap with Tiger.
Of Tiger, right. Not to mention updated motion captures of the other golfers. We have all of these things to do. And we have a limited size development team. He's like, so yeah, we want to do it and we want to turn this into Tiger. And so all of a sudden it's like, well, how the fuck do we pull this schedule in and increase the scope, right? And add somebody like Tiger Woods into it and Tigerize the game, make it a game worthy of Tiger.
Different UI, different UX, everything. Flow.
Yeah, it's a partial reskin, but it had to be more than a reskin. We have Cartwright. We had we basically upped the game. We upped the resources and upped the size of the team and the players involved. By that point, I kept getting promoted, like in the engineering track, senior software engineer 2, senior software engineer 3, like over the years, and like while we're still at Fashion Island. And eventually, there wasn't anything else left. I hit the top, so they created a new title called technical producer just for me and just to bring me up in the HR levels, kind of or whatever.
Yeah.
And so eventually I had that title and I was still mostly coding, lead engineer, but mostly coding and planning. And then all of a sudden it's like, okay, the only way we can do this is throw more bodies at it. We have part of the way we're going to do this is throw more bodies at it. Right. So we teamed up, we added them to the team. And then we also added some of the French underground to the team from 1510. So we took some of the 3DO engineers and the guys from LA and our team, and I became still a engineer, but more product manager, technical producer at this point, because managing that, I think we had 13 engineers at that point on one game, right? Which was a lot at that point. Maybe not now, but then it was still. We were just getting to that point where the number was growing to that. And so now all of a sudden we have this huge engineering team, art team. We have the motion capture being driven by Steve and marketing. We have media lab. And during this time, and so we tried to make a plan, Microsoft project. I lived in Microsoft project back then, and I loved Gantt charts. It was the greatest thing in the world to see. But you change the estimate,
Dependencies showed
offload this
up.
task, watch the date. Right. Dependencies, watch the date come back in. Where are we at? John Horsley was part of the team at that point. I think he was maybe an exec producer working under Rich. And during the so we start trying to figure out how to use this team and push forward with a plan that would get us to a release by October or something. And so, you talk about crunch mode, usually being a month at the end, maybe a couple months or whatever. This was crunch mode for 9 months. I mean, all the time. I go home and read books to my kids, and I only lived a few miles away, and then come back to work and work till 1 p.m. or whatever. During this time, just by coincidence, is when EA was moving from Fashion Island to the new campus in Redwood Shores. And not everything was built yet. They were building 3 buildings total, not including the parking garage, or the one attached to the parking garage, whatever that was. But the first building, the tall building, was the first one that was going to be done, or done enough anyway. They weren't done, but some of the floors were done. And the very first team to move was my team, was the Hitmen group. We were the very first dev team to move from Fashion Island to Redwood Shores Parkway. And so where we get to Redwood Shores, and now we're on a full scale crunch for 9
with a bigger
months
team
to get this game done. With a much bigger team.
You're doing less coding and you're doing more managing,
never
right?
managed that many people before. Never managed that many people before, or that big of a scope for how much we're trying to do in a short time with a video game, still on a PlayStation, but still on a primitive technology. PlayStation 1 obviously was even slower than a PC, and the dev cycles were longer because you're burning a disc. I mean, we did have the development systems, which were hard to get and
two
expensive.
Of mine. You took 2 from my team.
But you could only test that. Well, exactly. We were cannibalizing everybody and all equipment everywhere, including CD burners. Yeah, but you can only test so much on the dev system. You had to burn discs pretty regularly to make sure that the load time and it would work the same off the disk. And then eventually you had to burn a disk every single day when you
kill
get
the bugs.
QA. It was only disks. They can't test off dev systems. Here we are now in 98. Yeah. Early 98. Oh, wait, no, we moved to Redwood Shores.
It was early 98.
September 98.
Yeah.
We were working on the game early 98. And then during that time, we did the move to Redwood Shores.
But we're still mastering in 1450 Mastering Lab with John Williams. And it was $4.08 for every PlayStation CD we had to burn. They were expensive, right? And so you didn't want to have too many. So you had your key testers. I'm going to make 3 builds. You guys crush this bug before we do it, because they took it right off our P&L how much money we spent on mastering. And they were Sony 1X burners, and it took 2.5 hours to burn 1 disc. So there was this huge friction on getting bugs crushed because you couldn't close out a bug until you tested it on the box. So it was this super urgent, crazy fucking John Williams lined up.
Having a faster burner.
You guys had...
Yeah,
you had to be in the queue, and you guys had to head queue all the time. So you would bump my Madden builds off the queue because you were Tiger, and I got booted out of media. We had to cut features on Madden because we didn't have enough media lab time, right? So you guys were you were beyond crunch mode. It was a whole company effort. Everybody was all hands on deck.
Every day was crunch.
It was Tiger Woods.
We were in San Mateo, and then in the middle, and that's right, we were already making discs in San Mateo, and then during the middle of that, we moved to Redwood Shores. Then there was a mastering lab in Redwood Shores, huge one. But eventually it was not fast enough. So we actually got our own burner, super fast burner, right there down on our group, and we were burning right there. And
so last we talked, you got a new mastering system and you put it in your department so that you could make discs faster because you're trying to kill bugs in crunch mode on Tiger Woods PlayStation 1. 1999.
We did it, and along the way there was. Here, I'll point this out now because it'll be meaningful when we get to the rest of the story. And that is, we had this mastering machine where we can make CDs, any kind of CD, plays video or just data or whatever you want. And there was a request from up above, one of my bosses, that said, hey, you know what? During this time, okay, we should point out that the very, very, very first South Park cartoon came out.
It was a Christmas card.
And
it wasn't a cartoon.
Correct me.
It was meant to be a Christmas card.
It was like a Christmas card video that I believe an exec at Fox had asked these guys to do, Matt and Trey. They contracted them or just asked them to make something like that. I'm sure it's well documented on the
But we
internet.
got a copy of
But it was something like that. And so we did get a copy of it. I mean, it was even on old video formats back then. Maybe it was on the internet too. I can't remember, but it was early days of handling, large video files. But anyway, the request came down, and so we all saw it, of course, and thought it was the funniest thing in the world, right? A fight between Jesus and Santa Claus, and all cardboard cutouts. And remember, South Park wasn't around yet, so it was a really new and different looking thing.
It was funny.
And it was funny.
Funniest fucking thing in the world. It's like, it's time to remember what Christmas is about.
Ham.
It's like, yeah, ham. Not ham, you fat fuck. Right. So, I mean, we were laughing every day about that shit. It's like presents, Kyle. So, hey, if you're Jewish, you get presents for 8 days.
You
like,
too.
really?
Count
me in. I'll get you too. So that's all we were doing for weeks. And so that was going around and getting viral before viral was a thing. And there was a request from
one of the executives,
one of my bosses. Yeah, he may or may not have been mentioned already in this podcast. And he said, hey, you know what? Tiger likes that. And it'd be cool to like make a CD, like put the video on a CD for Tiger. So we did. And so we got the video somehow, got it on the mastering machine, and we got it from you. Is that right? I can't remember. And so, because we might have been talking
Pretty
about
much
it at
this is
Music
how it
Night,
happened.
actually. And
because there was an effort at the
request came
company,
in.
you should say, to have a better relationship with Tiger. So Tiger, we had to go to Florida to him. We had to go do mocap in Florida. So there was a concerted effort with Don Trance and his whole team. And he wanted to meet all the video game guys. So there were video game guys that have been mentioned in this podcast that went and had relationships with Tiger to make that work better. And one of the requests came back saying, hey,
really good
I want to see that movie.
Yes. Thank you. That is really, really good context there. So, and it fills in some holes. So anyway, yeah. So when that request eventually came to me,
because you had a mastering
you're
station,
right. I think we were
and the
talking
other
about
place was loaded up.
Right.
And you were working on the
and
game.
you owned the
So I
relationship
can do
with
that. So
Tiger,
we
and it was better coming from you. Yeah.
And so, or my bosses did anyway, or my colleagues, I mean. And so yeah, we did make a CD that would play a video on PC or something like that. But we mastered a CD with that original South Park video on it. And that was it. We just made one or two, whatever. I don't know. I gave him well, it doesn't matter. I gave him to Rich. Yeah. And he took care of it. And so that's just for context. So we did that one day in the middle of working on Tiger. Later on during our project, unrelated to the actual game logic or the game play, we encountered a bug. And I think it was because the game was bigger than usual, or it wasn't a typical size of how much room it was taking up on the disk.
I think we had 512 megabytes or something. I think something like that. And then we had to fill the rest in
right?
with a dummy file.
Yeah, and it was either bigger than usual or like it wasn't as difficult. Most games were a size where it just worked. But I think we pushed it so the heads of the CD player itself were getting close to the edge, right? Close to their limits. And that's one of the reasons you had to basically fill in the empty space so that the PlayStation CD reader would know where the end was, kind of a thing, and couldn't accidentally get, off the rails type of a thing. So we got to a point where we were having a bug. We didn't know that's what the problem was, but we had a bug where the QA guys were able to get the game to crash. And we weren't sure what it was. Of course, as long as you can reproduce the bug, we can fix it, always. That's just, that's the axiom. As long as I can reproduce it, I can fix it. Might take longer than, if I can't reproduce it, I can still fix it, but it'll take longer. So I was looking at this and and we couldn't solve it the old fashioned way. We couldn't find a bug in our code where we were hitting a point or we're getting to a certain point.
It only was
we're
happening on the test
computer.
stations.
And right, it wasn't happening on the development systems, right? It was only happening on the actual CD test stations, right? Running off disk, I mean. So eventually I enlisted the help of someone who knew a little more about hardware and had dealt with something like this before. And that was Jeff Litz. And so we started working together down on his floor and trying to make this thing happen and diagnosing it from other ways, like actually looking at the hardware and looking at like, what do you call it? Circuit emulators, and actually not only looking at software, but looking at the hardware and watching what was happening. It looked like we had some ideas that, okay, I think maybe the CD player, CD reader is going wacko. And so it's like, okay, let's change how we're filling up that space there. Let's limit it. We did a couple things. I think we changed, like we threw some stuff, took some stuff out of the game to make it shorter to see if it would still happen, or we added some extra data for some holes we didn't need or something on the courses to artificially make it bigger. And then eventually it's like, let's put a really big file at the end, the zzDummy.dat file, which back then was the name of the file that you would add so that it would fill up the space on the disk, right? And usually you could fill it up, reasonably towards the end or just enough. In this case, we had to fill it up like very precisely. But anyway, we said, okay, there's a couple ways to do that. We can just grab any big file. It doesn't matter what's in the file. It just needs to be a big file that has a file size of this, and that's it. Because it's the data inside that file is never going to be used or seen. And so you could write code to generate a file.
That takes hours sometimes.
Well, I mean, exactly. And then also it might not be the right size. So you have to do it over and over again, right? And so trial and error. But there happened to be this one file on the CD burner that was just about the right size. It's like, yeah, that looks like that's perfect. That's so many, whatever, 100 megabytes or tens of megabytes or whatever the file had to be. I can't remember. But there happened to be one big file. It's like, let's just take that one.
It was on the mastering system already, right? Because the mastering system had a hard drive, and moving that much data across the network took a long time too. And you're in a hurry. You got to get this fucking done, right? And wait a minute, here's a file already on the mastering system.
That's exactly right. So it's like for this iteration, let's just use this file because it's the size we're looking for this one test. So we threw that in there and we went back to started testing, and the problem was solved. The game started working. It's like, okay, we now know what the deal is. It's like mental note. Okay, this file needs to be this big or pretty close to this big. And, we didn't have Jira back then. It's like, make a task to come back and make a new file or whatever when we master, right?
Then the other thing you forgot to mention is you're on your way to E3 to do a demo to show this game.
I forgot about
that. That's why it was 3 in the morning with Jeff Litchu and me in the mastering lab with John Williams throwing a shit fit saying, you guys, we have to get the build done.
I totally forgot about
because we're leaving in 2 days.
I actually forgot about E3. So, but yeah, we had to fix this problem because we had to run it up to wow. I did forget about that. But anyway, so this is early. This is alpha or pre-alpha. And I would always use a Sharpie to write on the disk, the date, and this is pre-alpha or whatever the description we were using for that build level. And then we had a big spindle, and it would keep putting, a copy of the disk we burned on there so we can go back in time. That would also
was our version control.
Things if we injected a bug somewhere. Where was it introduced? Exactly. That was our version control back then. So we had version control of the actual CDs. And so that we said, great, we fixed it. Great. Let's move on.
Go to E3.
Now we have a few more.
No, you went to E3. You had a big, huge thing. Everybody was happy. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. But we still had, we didn't release this till maybe October.
It was Christmas.
September.
It was a Christmas
No, I think
release,
it was like October. We were trying to hit Christmas, which means we had to be, gold master by October or something, right? End of October, maybe. And so we're still on a mad dash to get the game done. Everything, everything related to the game. Completely forgot about this. Totally.
And it's on the build system, right? So every time you make a build, it's using that file.
Yes. It became part of the master folder where we would append or replace the executables.
And it would build without a bug. Yeah.
Or rather, it was the zzDummy.dat that just kept being used or whatever, right? But it was the master folder for burning, and we knew it worked. Out of sight, out of mind. We're in a mad rush. We're still crunching every day now for months to get to the end, right? QA cycles and burning and burning and burning. Never even thinking about this.
You might have been thinking about shipping on time.
That's all we were thinking about is shipping on time and crossing tasks off the list and fixing bugs.
There was no Jira with a blocker task.
We finally, and so though during this time, okay, I'm sorry. We finish. We actually finish. We get the Gold Master. We ship it. It's out the door, right? During this time, before we discovered that we might have forgotten something. It's like during this time, and now this is like end of October, maybe November.
After you went to manufacturing already.
After it went to manufacturing, after it shipped. No, it already shipped. That you were out of town. Rick, that day. And you and me and Richard were already good friends. And so we were going to your house to get some weed.
Of course.
Richard and I were driving up I-92 to Skyline to go to your house and you told us how to get in your house without you there to pick up a bag of weed. And so during that drive, Richard told me, congratulations, the game just hit 800,000 units and you got, some kind of gold disc award, right? It wasn't quite 1 million yet, but that was still a milestone. I think I remember the number 800,000 for some reason. And it's like, oh, that's fucking cool, and this is great. And this is the first time that I had been at EA in 6-7 years that we were ever going to not just hit 100% bonus, 200% a bonus, because we got it done on time. Whatever the criteria was, it was the first time that ever happened because no game ships on time.
You shipped on time and you hit your success criteria.
And somehow we were able to do it. So me and my whole team were going to get a very, very big bonus. And so everything was feeling great. And then we're at work. We're probably talking about the next game, whatever, Tiger Night 2000 or whatever we were doing next. And then I remember Billy Delegati came over and said, I got to show you something.
And he was one of the testers on Tiger.
He was a QA then, right? And he said, somebody outside the company, some user,
posted this,
discovered something. Right. They took the black PlayStation disc, which it turns out you can actually put in your PC and look at. You can't play a PlayStation game, but you can actually look at the files and you can see the file system. And on this file, zzDummy.dat, you can't even double click on it because there's no app on Windows that'll open it, right?
Copy.
You have to right click on it and say open as.
You had to copy the name.
It was convoluted on how to open it.
It was not, it's something that could not happen.
And when we found out about
it,
the guy was actually trying to pirate the disc, and that's how he found it.
Yeah, it was something like that. He was hacking it. He was hacking the disc in some way.
But he posted it
and
on
accidentally just tried to figure out how we could replicate it or how we could copy it, right? And so he somehow stumbled onto the fact that this was a video file. Maybe he inspected it, or maybe, I don't know, and then he tried to play it. Because you could not make this happen on a PlayStation. It was impossible. And even on a PC, you had to do what he did. So you have to take the PlayStation disc, put it in a computer,
rename the file, all that.
And it turned out, there's a cartoon. It's like, this must be an Easter egg, right? It's a logical thing to assume. This must be something EA just snuck in there, right?
It's a big Easter egg.
Even though, there was no copyright. I don't even know if it was copyrighted, but either way, it was clearly an issue. And it was profane. So it's like, there was all of these different.
Not a good fit for the target audience.
And I'm looking at this, scratching my head, thinking, what the fuck?
Adam,
how is this even
there? Was words in that video that said, I want to be a Jew too. And it was on Tiger Woods 99.
And also, no, you fat fuck. Right, exactly.
It was a problem.
So anyway, how did this happen? So it's like, okay, wait a minute. And then little by little, I'm starting to think, wait a minute. We did burn that disc once, that movie. And so then I start going back through the spindle of discs and seeing where this was introduced, and then remembering,
It's
this
like
became
months ago.
Our big data filler file on this date months before. And I'm like, okay. So what do they? So they what do we do? Do we recall? Do we pull it from the shelves?
Just a simple question.
That was the plan.
Should we ask Larry? Let's ask Larry.
No, that was the plan. No, but guess what they do instead? And this
Nancy
blew my
Smith
mind.
Was a genius.
If they were gonna be concerned about it all, this blew my mind. Nancy issues a press release saying what happened, not apologizing or saying it was an accident. She instructs everyone how to do it. She tells people in the PR, this is how you do it. And I'm like, what are you doing? It's like the whole world. I mean, it's like instead of one person knowing, there was no internet. It's like, I don't know how many people would have known otherwise. She explains how you can see the video.
And you know why she did that, right?
What?
Because they sold out
the sales.
First manufacturing run for the first time ever at Electronic Arts. There was no more discs. They ran out of manufacturing. And now that's a collector item, right? I haven't even looked it up. It's probably on eBay. You could probably find a copy of it or something. But That's because she's a genius. Because she was
it was funny.
You're right. I think what Ruth Kennedy and they looked at is, since there wasn't copyrighted and it was on the internet anyway, damages are going to be hard to prove. And Nancy saw the opportunity to, at Christmas, crushed every other golf game anywhere in the world. It was 2-1 any sales.
And Richard was on vacation far away. Richard actually happened to be on vacation really far away. I don't know where he was actually, but he just wasn't around. And so I couldn't even talk to him at that moment, or he just left, or something like that. And then Riccatelli was running the studio at that point. He temporarily
just taken
was
over
running
from Larry,
the development studio. Right. Well, I mean, no, from
John Batter,
because there used to be a development guy running the studio, and this was a new thing. Let's have a non-development guy run a studio. And so he was in a weird place. And then, politically, or the powers that be from the corporation stockholder standpoint, we're like, well, how do we handle this? And so that's a whole nother story.
we don't need to go into that.
I don't know if we need to go into the details of that.
On eBay for $70 to $150, and they
Really?
definitely call out
South
includes South Park.
Fucking A, I never looked for that. That's funny.
Yeah.
Okay. But that was a very interesting time.
Yeah, my recollection, because I remember the April time frame, because you were handing out the disc with the South Park episode on it, and that was one of my early interactions with you, was like, oh, this guy's got access to this cool South Park thing, and it's fucking hilarious.
That was the thing. You had the burner, and that's why we got it from you.
I can burn
And then
CD.
I remember, because I was in EA Sports, and I remember we heard about it, and we were like, oh, let's go see it, and we couldn't see it. So we were like, wait, how do you do this? And then finally, after a bunch of talking back and forth, we were like, oh, yeah, that's fucking complicated. No one's going to find that. And then, days later, we're like, oh, or you could just read the press
Nancy
release.
says how to do it.
Now everyone knows how to do it.
I still have the gold
so
disc that says SOXMAS, written by your hand.
Why not?
Spirit of Xmas.
Yes.
The disc you gave me, I still have that disc.
Yes. You know what? So, I think I actually still have that on my computer.
Bet you do. So let me ask this. What was the blowback for the team and for you after it all happened?
Well, I don't know if we should talk about that.
The game's a huge hit.
Game's a huge hit, really big hit.
The gameplay was awesome. You changed golf forever.
Really good game.
Start of a franchise.
The power meter thing on the joist pads was amazing, and you guys innovated
really had to
all
do that
and you
fast.
delivered on time.
No, they were concerned, and yet when I saw the press release,
That's
I'm
a
like,
good corporate word. We're concerned.
if you're really concerned, then why did you do this press release? And then, I had a meeting with a lot of people just to explain that it really was an accident.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like it could have been like a prank, but no, it actually was not.
It wasn't a real Easter egg.
There's a lot of people that, really wanted to believe that it definitely was a prank. It kind of looked like it, but
I think we
really,
did have
really
a
wasn't.
reputation, Adam.
Exactly.
Well, one thing I learned today is we can talk about games for 3.5 hours.
4 hours.
Right.
Yeah.
Not even.
Yeah.
Well, the next episode of Everything is Fine with Rick and Gary will feature Adam Bellin talking about something besides lasers.
You got it.
Yeah, I think we have enough content.
Hey, this
we
was
can
really
now
good.
Go through the process.
Yeah. We got lots of content. This was really good. Adam,
Yeah.
thank you for being our
Thank
first
you for being our first guest.
and
The
for
inaugural.
sharing so many
you for
fun
having me.
stories.
And just to let me know, is everything fine, Adam? Everything's fine.
Everything's fine, and
We
I
always
think we
ship on
are
time.
going to ship on time. I think we really are
We
a full
always
step
ship on
forward.
Yeah, I think
Now
it's
I have a
interesting.
team.
You guys
Now I
are
actually
still
have
working
Bob.
together and
Again,
working on a
right?
project together.
But now I have a team. Now I have Pobs and Quinn
And
and
1,000
Azul
AI
and-
hands.
and AI hands, and people were hiring, and all of a sudden, in just a couple weeks, it's gone from just a couple people, fixing things and working on stuff, to a team pushing together every day and having merge conflicts, which is a nice.
I can't
problem
wait to
have.
play what you guys
Soon.
are working on.
Everything's fine, we're shipping on time. Everything's fine, we're shipping on time. Everything is fine, we're shipping on time. I'm hearing good things, we're shipping on time. Take some deep breaths, we're shipping on time. Let me solve that, we're shipping on time. Everything is